Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. This is Elisa Ruffin with Leading Educators, and you are on the Grade 11 ELA Unit 6 video series. And we are jumping into Week 7, Lesson 33, wrapping up our study of the Telltale Heart today. This week, we've really been focused on analyzing the craft and structure of the text. In day 1, you did a reading and a quick write. Day 2, you did some questions and created an alternate title. And then in day 3, you really focused on the idea of foreshadow and pacing to uncover what were the secrets to creating suspense in that story. And hopefully after doing those activities, you have a better understanding of just how the author made you feel the way he feels, that anxiety and that curiosity, remember? And I really hope you had that dramatic read aloud yesterday and enjoyed it, and that whoever you shared it with enjoyed it as well. So today, we wrap up the text of the Telltale Heart, focused on another technique called point of view. And in addition to focusing on point of view, you're going to rewrite a passage from the text from a different perspective. Before we get started, though, remember that when we're done with the lesson activities for this week, you're going to share your learning with a family member, friend, or caregiver, complete the weekly fluency activity using a page from the text, and do some additional reading of a text of your choice. Now we've come to that part of the day and the week, the riddle of the day, and you're going to get another list of 3 words. We're doing our word association, remember again, and you're going to find that word that's missing that binds those 3 together, right? So we've done 3 so far, and hopefully you're 3 for 3, and today you'll be 4 for 4. So are you ready? Gather those around you who are a part of it, or get yourself nice, ready, and focused so we can practice that decoding and that making of inferences, shall we? Here is our final list of words for the week. Knife, fly, cup. Knife, fly, cup. Now I'm going to be honest with you. Upon first glance, I don't see it. But I know that you're brilliant. So take a minute, discuss, think. All right, this is the part of the video where I give you an opportunity to pause in case you don't want me to spoil it for you and you're really committed to figuring this out on your own or as a group. But the answer is butter. The answer is butter. Butter knife, butterfly, butter cup. So butter, that one was hard. I did not get that one. I'm going to tell you. I'm just saying, right? Hopefully you did. And you enjoyed the challenge this week of the word associations. Now let's make sure we have our materials for today. You need the Telltale Heart text, the Learning Packet Week 7 Lesson 33 Note Catcher, pen or pencil, and a mobile device is optional if you'd like to access the text digitally. And as you recall, even though it is the last day, we want to make sure that you know that Edgar Allan Poe is the author of this text. It is a form of Gothic literature and a prime example of the psychological thrillers that Edgar Allan Poe used to write. Definitely connected to our essential theme for the unit, what do stories reveal about the human condition? And then as we look at the story for the final time, what sinister parts of the human condition does the Telltale Heart reveal? Our learning target for today, I can demonstrate how shifting the point of view of the story can affect the story's plot. So just a reminder about point of view. We've talked about it previously, but it's the perspective from which the story is written. From whose perspective is the story written? And we've talked about that with previous texts as well. So we know that the narrator it's a first person point of view, and the narrator is the one in the story and telling the story. So thinking that through and taking that into consideration, your task today is to think about how would the plot of the story unfold differently if it was told from the perspective of another character, if it was told from another character's point of view. And you're going to provide evidence to support your point of view from the story. And then you're going to talk with your family member, caregiver, or friend about the question, does it actually matter whose point of view the story is told from? Why or why not? And then provide examples from the text to support your point of view. Like, so is the author making specific and intentional choices about what perspective or what vantage point to write from? Does it really matter that much to the overall plot? You should have a definitive point of view of that and be able to support that point of view. In your write in closing for today, you're going to start at line 15 on page IL4. You're going to reread that text and then write a brief 7 to 10 sentence narrative from the perspective of the officers. So you get to pick up your pen as an author, and maybe even utilize some of the strategies and techniques we've been talking about and rewrite that entire scene from the perspective of another character in the scene. You're then going to share the narrative you come up with a family member, caregiver, or friend, and ask for feedback about how you can make your narrative more suspenseful, and then record that feedback in your note catcher and maybe even do some revisions if you'd like. All right, so let's model how to approach our activities for today, shall we? So the think section here. How would the plot of the story unfold differently if it was told from another character's point of view? And you're going to cite evidence from the story to support your point of view. So I want you to think about the entire story is told from the point of view of the narrator, right? He dominates the entire dialogue and conversation. We're in his head. We already question his perception of reality, which we talked about a couple lessons ago, because of his state of mind. And we don't trust that state of mind. It's unstable. So how do you think specifically the officers, and those are the other characters in this section of the story, perceive these events and the narrator's actions? So they're coming into the story not having been privy to or having insight on any of what's going on in the narrator's head. They're just observing. Okay? And so the good thing about this particular passage of text that you're going to rewrite is that you already have some characters chosen, and you could probably guess and wonder and think through and brainstorm exactly how an officer would have observed, perceived, and what conclusions they would have drawn about the narrator's behavior. Okay. That being said, when you talk with your family member, caregiver, or friend about the importance of point of view, think about the fact that if it was told from the officer's point of view, what would we know, what wouldn't we know, and how might the story have changed? And if the story would have changed significantly, then that kind of reveals what the impact or the importance and significance of point of view is to the story in general. So that's how the think and talk sections connect to one another. Now let's move on to the write section, where you're actually going to get down to business, roll up those sleeves, and write today. So again, you're looking at that section in the story on IL4, line 15, that has the narrator and the officers in the story together. So you're going to reread that just to refamiliarize yourself with the events of the story and take a closer look at it. And then you're going to write it from the officer's perspective as opposed to the narrator's perspective. So one of the things that you can do to help you do this is you can build on your response to the question in your response to the question in the think section, and anchor the rewrite in the examples from the text to make sure that you maintain authenticity. Right? Now you have a lot of room for imagination here, just because there is such a disparity between the narrator's perspective and perception versus reality. And so there's a good contrast that is available to you here between the officers and the narrator. Okay, so that gives you some room because of the gap, because of the disparity. And then considering the state of mind of the narrator, you can choose, for example, to provide more clarity and insight to the reader by offering the perspective of other characters, right? That may have had a better grasp on reality, that may have perceived the events more clearly and with a different set of eyes than what the narrator is providing insight about. So you can choose to do that. You can choose to reveal some things that the narrator wouldn't have revealed because of his state of mind or because of his motive. And you can relate, obviously, to some of the reactions or impressions that the officers may have had by going back to your annotations about your initial impressions as you're reading about what's going on here. And you are privy to a lot more information. So keep that in mind as well. So you get to be really creative with this. Use examples from the text to help craft this narrative. Use your annotations and your instincts that your annotations reveal to help you write this narrative. And be excited to share it with a family member, caregiver, or friend. I know it's going to be really, really interesting. And try your hand at some foreshadowing. Try your hand at some pacing there since you've had exposure to it. And put to work your newly found comprehension and understanding of some aspects of craft and structure in the text. So now it is your turn to read, think, talk, and write. Remember, you're going to skim through the text again, specifically paying attention to the passage with the officers in it so that you can write another narrative from that perspective. You're going to think about how the plot of the story would have unfolded differently, having been written from a different perspective, and you're actually going to carry that through by writing your own narrative. And you're going to talk about the importance and significance of point of view to a story, and how that's a very intentional choice that an author makes, because it ultimately determines what the reader knows and what the reader doesn't. Okay? And then again, you're writing that narrative, and you're going to close with sharing. If you have any questions, make sure that you pause and replay the video as often as you need to. And also make sure that if you get stuck and you need some additional support and advice, that you reach out to a teacher via email using the information provided. And then finally, when it's all said and done and you're finished with your narrative and you've shared it with a family member, friend, or caregiver, that you complete the weekly fluency activity using a page from the text, and you do an additional 20 minutes of reading of a text of your choice. So again, we've come to the end of another series of lessons. Bravo and congratulations. You hung in there. You did great. You learned a lot of new things. You did some reading, thinking, talking, and writing, all of which helps you understand the text, The Telltale Heart, better. When you return after a well-deserved break, we will start in on another text together, and I am looking forward to it. I hope you are too. Have a good one.